Hello everybody, welcome. Just some housekeeping issues to start with. Emergency exits, there's two here at the front and one here at the back left-hand side. The toilets are where you came in at the entrance of the building, just down that corridor. And if you have got your phones, we would love you to be tweeting and things like that, but if you could put them to silent, that would be great. Firstly, I would like to acknowledge that in gathering here today, we acknowledge the Ghana people, who are the traditional custodians of this land. We pay our respects to their elders past and present, and extend that respect to other Aboriginal people present. So welcome to the opening ceremony of the Southern Hemisphere Space Study Programme for 2020. My name is A.D. James. I'm an Associate Professor at the University of South Australia, and I'm the Co-Director of the programme. I'd like to especially welcome Stephen Patterson MP, member for Morford. He's here today representing the Premier of South Australia, the Honourable Stephen Marshall MP, and the South Australian Government, and he will be opening the programme this afternoon. I'd also like to welcome Auntie Elaine of the Ghana people, Anthony Murfitt, Deputy Head of the Australian Space Agency, Professor Simon Beechan, Pro-Vice-Chancellor of Research and Innovation at the University of South Australia, and Mr. Goktug Karakala, I knew I'd get it wrong, Karakala Ulu, who is from the International Space University, and he's this year's Programme Director. So more than 300 participants have graduated from the SHSSP, and this year we have 53 confirmed participants with us this afternoon. So it's now my pleasure to introduce the class of 2020. In the tradition of the programme, the participants will enter behind the flag of their country. As our participants enter, we will hear a recording of the Adelaide Youth Orchestra performing Jupiter, the Bringer of Joy by Gustav Holst. This recording comes from a live performance from the Adelaide Youth Orchestra at the IAC conference in 2017, and one of the musicians on that day is here as a participant, so that's a nice connection. So, to begin the procession, we welcome the participants from our host country. So I'd like to welcome Australia. Germany. India. Israel. This is the first time we've had a participant from Israel. Mexico. Romania. Italy, slightly up. Thailand. The United Arab Emirates. The United Kingdom. And finally, the United States of America. So please join me in welcoming the Southern Hemisphere Space Studies Programme class of 2020. I would now like to welcome Auntie Elaine Magias to the stage to perform a welcome to country. Auntie Elaine is a respected elder within her community and works tirelessly in supporting teachers in developing curriculum which is inclusive of Aboriginal perspectives. So it's only fitting that she is here to welcome you all to what is an intercultural educational programme. Auntie Elaine. Thank you, Auntie Elaine. I would now like to welcome Mr. Stephen Patterson, MP, to deliver an address.
Well, thank you, Addie, and also thank you to Auntie Elaine for your welcome to all these participants from around the world. I'd also like to acknowledge that the land we meet on today is the traditional lands of the Kaurna people, and we respect their spiritual relationship with the country. We also acknowledge the Kaurna people as the traditional custodians of the Adelaide Plains, and that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still as important to the living Kaurna people today. I'd also like to take this opportunity to acknowledge Mr. Guktu Karajala Olu, the director of your program that you're taking part in. Also Anthony Murfitt, Deputy Head of the Australian Space Agency, and also Professor Simon Beecham, Deputy Vice-Chancellor of this university. But most importantly, I'd like to say good evening to you, ladies and gentlemen, both participants and those who are coming along supporting them. It's certainly a pleasure to be here, witnessing the opening of this program and representing South Australia's Premier, the Honourable Stephen Marshall. He is unable to make it along to today's opening, but certainly sends you his best wishes for a successful program. He has really been at the forefront at this state in really pushing the space programs here in South Australia, and he really is excited to hear about the opportunities for all of you as part of this program. As I mentioned, South Australia is very proud to be home to this prestigious international space program, which certainly has a global reputation by providing quality education in key space knowledge areas, especially here in the Southern Hemisphere. And I know there's also a sister program that occurs in the Northern Hemisphere. Its reputation as being an international, intercultural and interdisciplinary philosophy is renowned as providing holistic thinkers who are certainly critical in shaping this evolving space industry, which really is accelerating in growth. When I look around the room and see all the students come through as part of the ceremony, it's great to see so many young, aspiring space professionals, both from across Australia, but also from around the globe. And it was really pleasing to see so many of you who have come from other countries that are in the Northern Hemisphere taking the time to come here and see the Southern Hemisphere and what the opportunities are in this part of the world. If I could just touch a little bit on my background. When I was a student, I went to the nearby university, the Adelaide University, where I obtained an electrical and electronic engineering degree and also a science degree majoring in physics. And this gave me the opportunity when I first started out working at British Aerospace in the space field. And then also I had the opportunity to do some work at the Mount Stromlo Observatory in Canberra. And it certainly was an exciting time space at that stage. And now fast forward, it's even more an exciting time with the opportunities that present themselves now. As far as 2020 is concerned, it certainly marks an exciting point in time for both Australia and indeed South Australia's space odyssey. We've built on significant momentum here in our space sector with the official announcement that the Australian Space Agency is going to be located here in Adelaide, and it is moving into its the new innovation precinct at Lot 14, which is on North Terrace, not too far away from where we are. In terms of Lot 14, it's a key element of the South Australian Government's vision to create a cohesive entrepreneurial ecosystem and also an environment that will inspire innovators to take risks, but also to activate those ideas into reality. And it certainly is attracting some of the nation's brightest researchers, entrepreneurs and innovators, with over 900 people already working in this site in such high growth industries as space, defence, machine learning, robotics and also other creative industries. So I really am truly excited to see work progressing in Lot 14, and it'll also be home to the headquarters of some other space-related activities. There's the SmartSat Cooperative Research Centre, as well as the Future Mission Control Facility, and also the Space Discovery Centre, which will be able to be used by school students here in Adelaide to see what opportunities there are in space and hopefully inspire them to undertake your program in years to come. Now, the investment in high growth sectors like space certainly is, we're hoping that will stimulate our economy, but also open new doors for local businesses and create high tech jobs for the future. It certainly is a huge vote of confidence for our rapidly growing space sector here, which is made up of nearly 80 companies and organisations, that world-leading education institutes and also a culture of innovation is able to be present here in South Australia. Importantly, it is also going to create new learning pathways and opportunities for you and yourself when you go through and complete your program, and hopefully you look to South Australia maybe to further what you've learned here and actually put it into practice right here in South Australia. In terms of developing that workforce, which hopefully you'll be a part of, South Australia's space industry is entering an exciting period of growth. There's real career opportunities that are starting to evolve in South Australia because of our efforts to grow the space industry. The South Australian government really has shown its commitment to growing this future space workforce by providing scholarships to the 5 young South Australians to participate in the Southern Hemisphere Space Studies program. So I welcome you today especially. It is another example of our efforts to sustain and grow the space industry is our $4 million Space and Innovation Fund. It is a 4-year funding commitment which supports young space entrepreneurs along with new startups and early stage businesses to turn their innovation ideas and technology into high growth commercial ventures. So I'd just like to conclude by thanking you for attending the opening ceremony if you're the guest, and certainly wish all the best for the students of this program. I really do hope that this experience will open your eyes to the many and varied career opportunities in this lucrative space sector, and also provide you with valuable skills to forge ahead in this ever-growing industry. So I wish you all a successful and enjoyable program, and hope it paves the way for the future for a career in space. So I'd like to welcome you all, and I'm really excited to be here for the opening of this program, and wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you for your attendance today and opening the programme for us. I'm now pleased to welcome Mr. Anthony Murfitt, the Deputy Head of the Australian Space Agency, for a short address. Anthony.
Well, good evening, everyone. Firstly, thank you to Auntie Elaine for the welcome to country, and I also want to pass on my respect for the traditional owners on land on which we meet, and to their elders past, present and emerging. Well, I was here 12 months ago. The agency was 6 months old. We're now 18 months old. And I remember looking at the crowd, and I'm looking at the crowd again today and seeing the growth of the course here. It's now at 53. And that's in a little bit signifies what we're actually seeing here in Australia, but also around the world. Many of you in the crowd will know that the global space economy is going to be, or is forecasted to be, $1 trillion in size by 2040. And some of that forecasted growth is due to the strong links that space has on all of our lives, whether it is finding our way to our next meeting. For those that have just come to Australia, you've seen that we've having some very significant, devastating bushfires. It is through Earth observations and space technologies that are helping firefighters resolve some of these really pressing challenges. And not only can space play a role and connect the community in those ways, it's helping manage drought and other activities, and this is why we're seeing growth. But importantly, we're also seeing growth because of the rapid transformation. We're not in the 1960s anymore. We're here in the 2020s, which is hard to believe in itself. And this massive transformation, which means that the technology is smaller, and we're also seeing that lower costs of launch. And what that means is not only is it governments anymore that are investing in space, it is industry that is investing in space, and they're the ones that are making a difference. And that's what we're seeing here, both here in Australia and around the world. And as we look at those broad themes, these are some of the reasons why the Australian government established the Australian Space Agency, which is only 18 months ago, but I can tell you from my perspective, it feels a lot longer than that. And gee, have we had some momentum behind us. What we have is we have a purpose to grow and transform a globally respected space industry. And we've released a strategy that sets forward the key task that we have, which is to triple the size of Australia's space economy from what is around $4 billion to $12 billion and create 20,000 jobs. and that's by 2030. And again, you'll hear from Australia's perspective, we're seeing that because the space industry is a key part of Australia's future. And to do that, the Australian government has invested over $500 million since 2018-19 in the Australian space industry. I was here 12 months ago and I was talking about the Australian Space Agency. It's 6 months old. We have a $40 million budget. I can stand here today and say, well, not only has the sector grown, but the support for the agency has grown, and that there is an investment now of $220 million to help grow and transform in what we're seeing a very exciting time. So what have we done? So in the last little 18 months, and I sort of blur a little bit and go, is it really 18 months that we've been up and running? We've been out and engaged internationally. One of the things we need to do as a nation is Australia can bring some key capabilities to the world, but for us to do that, we need to do it in collaboration, and it's why international engagement and opening doors has been a central pillar to our activities. And looking around the room today, where we've brought over 13 countries together, you will develop partnerships and networks that will go on for your life. And the truly great thing about space is it does bring the world together. And of all the things that we need at this point in time is coming together, and space, through its ability to inspire, can really bring the community together. And not only have we been out internationally, nationally we've been investing and talking to industry and understanding their opportunities, and we've seen industry come in behind us and identify where it sees opportunities for growth in Australia. And that is from IoT devices that are on small payloads on CubeSats through to using IoT devices to help farmers. It's developing new ways of communicating in space through advanced comms and optical comms, and it's leveraging technology in other areas of our economy, like our broad mining sector, which automates most of its work, and considering how that can be taken into space. So it is an exciting time. And the other things we've been doing, we've been investing here in Australia. We are building the infrastructure so our companies can be involved. And that does include the mission control, which is 1.86 kilometres from this point. I know because I measured and I had to walk down North Terrace from our headquarters, which we are now located, which is really exciting to be in the phenomenal Lot 14 area. We're also investing in things such as command and control for robotics, so you can control these activities in space, and we're supporting international investment. But I think that's the Australian context. I also want to turn our mind to what's happening globally, and 2020 is shaping up to be a pretty exciting year. We can see there are several Mars missions that are going to go forward. So it's from both the United States, we've got the European Space Agency with a range of partners, and the UAE looking at ways to go to Mars and explore the red planet. We know that the US is having a look at a range of different activities, both as a government and in industry. SpaceX and Boeing are looking to return humans to space, and we have the big SLS rocket that is underway, and I've talked about things such as the 2020 rover mission. And here in Australia, we're seeing our industry grow. We're seeing them use space to transform people's lives, and I think that is truly exciting. But I also want to pause and think about, we've got this great momentum. What are some of the things that I think we're doing here in Australia that you might be able to reflect on over the next couple of weeks as you undertake your course? And I'll leave you with 3 things to ponder. The first thing is, we need to show the community around the world how space impacts on all of our lives. It is through engaging the public and the community, and they understand how space can be used, as you get true buy-in to what you're doing. It is why you see us coming out and explaining how you can now use flocks of nanosatellites that can communicate with farmers, and they can irrigate or monitor water in distances that mean they no longer have to drive. It is talking about how we can help emergency management. And it's about connecting with parents and their kids so they can see that space is actually a future for them going forward. And importantly, as we look at space and we see this massive transformation, it brings me to my second point about what we need to think about space. We need to show there are other areas of the economy that don't participate in space and can participate in space because the market has changed. So where we've got fitter and turners, we have people that are manufacturing seals. It could be for an automotive vehicle, or it could be people manufacturing very high-tech medical devices. We need to show these people that space and they can be involved. And it comes to something I call the democratization of space. One of the things I think we need to do is make space not special. Now, I do recognise that space is special because we work in a vacuum and and it's hard to get there. And I often say that once you put something in space, it's very hard to get back, which means you need a resiliency, standards, etc. But what we can't have when we talk about space is to make it seem inaccessible to the everyday person. We need to connect because that's how you inspire and that's how you get your future workforce in place. So it's a different way of opening up space so that someone who is creating a seal for a high-tech vehicle can say, actually, that might make sense to support a future space mission. And the last thing I do want to leave on is diversity. One of the big things we see here in Australia is we need to encourage diversity across the globe, and particularly our gender balance, and that's something we're looking at here in Australia. I think it's only by embracing our diversity and being inclusive and valuing everyone's strengths that we can truly be successful, and I think that is one of the key ways that Australia will be able to forge a competitive advantage. So in closing, as we can see from this great course, space does inspire, it does bring us together. You're going to forge some great relationships over the next couple of weeks. I really ask you to embrace. You're going to have a great array of speakers that will talk around a whole range of things of space, but enjoy the time that you have where you're not at work, you're not at study, you get to just focus on space and not be encumbered by other parts of your life. And that is truly itself something you should cherish. But please enjoy. I welcome you to the course, and importantly, have a good time because space is cool. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anthony. It's now my pleasure to welcome Professor Simon Beecham, Pro Vice-Chancellor of Research and Innovation at the University of South Australia. Simon.
Thank you, Adi. Before we begin, I'd just like to also reiterate and acknowledge that we meet today on Ghana land. The Ghana people have performed ceremonies on this land for many centuries, and we pay respect to their living culture and the unique role they continue to play in the Adelaide region. Mr. Stephen Patterson, member for Morphett, and distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to formally welcome you to the University of South Australia and to the 9th Southern Hemisphere Space Studies Programme. It's fitting that we're holding this ceremony on Ghana land, launching new frontiers and exploration opportunities from the land of one of the world's oldest cultures. I extend a warm welcome to everyone taking part in this year's programme and to those who have travelled so far to reach us in South Australia. As Stephen Patterson said, these are unusual times with the bushfires and everything else, and we are very pleased to still welcome you here to this Southern Hemisphere Space Studies programme. And a particular thanks goes out also to our sponsors. We appreciate your collaboration and support. The truly global reach of the programme is highlighted by the fact that this year we have 70% of the participants as international students, and that adds to the culture and spirit of the programme endlessly, I think. This year we have participants attending from 13 different countries, and I sincerely hope that those countries are able to network, collaborate and maintain their strong alumni representation and collaborations into the future as they go back to their home countries. We also hope that this time that you have with us here at the University of South Australia, and particularly your activities with the programme, will be rewarding and exciting. And in fact, I know they will be because I've seen so many of these programmes run before. UniSA's Division of IT, Engineering and the Environment has enjoyed a close working relationship with the International Space University, ISU, in the creation and evolution of this Space Studies programme. The Southern Hemisphere Space Studies Programme was originally developed with support of funding from the federal government's Australian Space Research Programme, and this has enabled the collaboration between the International Space University, or ISU, and the University of South Australia to create a successful professional development programme that is now, I'm very pleased to say, fully self-sustaining. In fact, UniSA is the only university in the world to have that ongoing sustainable partnership with the ISU to conduct an annual programme. Our relationship with ISU dates back to the early 1990s, and since then, this relationship has evolved to include staff and student exchanges, hosting the ISU's 9-week Space Studies programme in Adelaide in 2004 as a major project undertaken by all 3 South Australian universities, but led by UniSA, and hosting a module of ISU's Executive MBA programme in 2011. And now the Southern Space Studies programme, which was first held in 2011, and we're now running the 9th consecutive programme. We also offer industry-leading academic programmes in engineering, information technology and science with a specialised joint UniSA-ISU graduate certificate in space studies, which is directly linked to this space studies programme. UniSA is at the forefront of many areas of technology, and our scientists and engineers are looking forward to being engaged with you on these topics. Over the next 5 weeks, participants will gain insights and share experiences through a range of lectures, workshops and presentations. There will also be several free evenings to which members of the public are invited, and there's usually quite a few seminars held in this auditorium. Our own academic and research aspirations are focused on the future. Some examples of the research we are undertaking that specifically involve space include Associate Professor Craig Priest's research into the development of microfluidic sensor platforms designed to monitor human health factors. Through this, we are aiming to work with NASA to develop non-invasive health self-assessment and possibly wearable tools that will be able to analyse things like sweat and saliva and track health effects in real time. This research supports ambitions for further and longer journeys into space and will help astronauts to monitor and mitigate the physiological effects of longer exposure to space environments. Dr. Peter Schumacher, a member of one of our recently launched research centres, the Australian Research Centre for Interactive and Virtual Environments, is using the latest AR and VR technologies to design and test work and rest environments for submariners. His research focuses on how to ensure Navy defence personnel can be supported to operate at peak levels in confined, high-stress environments. But this expertise can be applied to all confined, high-stress work environments, such as spacecraft. From a personal perspective, I was part of a team that was awarded a NASA Earth and Space Science Fellowship in 2017, together with researchers from Yale University in the United States. And this work focused on modelling the water requirements for urban heat island mitigation with multi-sensor and multi-temporal remote sensing data, very similar to the work that Anthony outlined in his introductory speech. On behalf of the University of South Australia, I wish you all the very best with this year's programme. And please now join me in welcoming Mr. Guktu Karachala-Orlu, who is the programme director for both this programme and the... Was that okay, Guktu? I did practice. Guktu is the programme director for both the Northern Hemisphere programme and this programme in the Southern Hemisphere. He is the director of both programmes, and we welcome him very much. Guktu holds a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering and a 2 cum laude Master of Science in Engineering Management and Space Sciences. Following his studies, he spent 6 years as a launch system and centre design engineer before joining the mission design team at the NASA Ames Research Centre, where he specialised in small spacecraft and space debris mitigation projects. Joining the International Space University in 2010 as a participant in their space studies programme, Guktu maintained his extensive involvement with the programme after moving to France in 2013. I'm sure we'll be seeing more of him now that South Australia will be the epicentre of Australia's space industry, as outlined by Anthony earlier, and particularly with the SmartSat CRC being based here, the Australian Space Agency on Lot 14, and at UniSA we have many programs, including a venture catalyst space program. That was not a Freudian slip. Giving us the opportunity to tap into US $345 billion global space industry, supporting innovation, defence, telecommunications, the environment and high-tech jobs. The future of this state is looking very great indeed. Please join me in welcoming Guktu Karachala Uolu.
Thank you very much, Simon. As Simon mentioned, it has been almost 10 years that I am part of the ISU family in various capacities. Actually, I was a participant on that side 10 years ago, and then I was the participant liaison, teaching associate, academic coordinator, deputy director, but it is my absolute pleasure today to be on the stage as the recently appointed director of the program. I too would like to start by acknowledging Auntie Elaine and that we are standing today on the traditional lands of the Ghana people, and we pay our respect to the elders past, present and emerging, and respect the spiritual relationship with this incredible country. I would also like to thank and acknowledge Mr. Stephen Patterson for his warm welcome for us, and I am more than sure that in the upcoming 5 weeks, the participants will have time to visit this lovely city and the state, but this will not be enough, and at some point in their life, they will come back with their families, with their friends, and be part of this journey once again. The collaboration between UniSA and ISU dates back to 16 years ago, when SSP20 has been held in UniSA's city campus. Since then, the collaboration continues in virtually in all spheres of ISU's life, with Australians present today on ISU's board and as permanent staff members and faculty, and many influential alumni now working in many industries, CSIRO, Australian Space Agency, Cooperative Research Centre for Smart Satellites, Australian Air Force, and many space startup companies. Within this scope, I would also like to acknowledge and thank Professor Simon Beecham for wide opening the doors of University of South Australia to us for many years so far, and wishfully for many years to come. It is without doubt that the success of the program very much depends on the local academic and logistical support, and nourished by the strong collaboration between UniSA and ISU. Within this framework, I would like to also acknowledge the chair of the SHSSP Management Committee, Mr. Michael Davis, who is with us today in the audience, who is a well-known and respected figure in the Australian space community and a key person locally to establish this very program 10 years ago, which is getting definitely more and more stronger and getting more and more people into this arena. I also would like to acknowledge Mr. Gary Martin, who is also here in the audience today, one of our senior faculty members of ISU, who has been indeed the director of the Northern Space Studies program for 5 years in the past. Gary was also influential in the creation of SHSSP back in the day, but this time indeed he is here for the first time in person as the chair of one of our team projects. It is truly fantastic to see the progress of the Australian Space Agency and the space sector so far, since we have been running this program, SHSSP here, and especially during the recent years with hosting the IAC in 2017 and the formation of the agency in mid-18, and the announcement of Adelaide becoming the home to the agency just prior to, as Anthony mentioned, our opening ceremony last year. In this context, I would like to also acknowledge Mr. Anthony Murphy and thank him for joining us today, and would like to express ISU's willingness to further increase our collaboration with the Australian Space Agency in multiple domains in the future. This past year, ladies and gentlemen, has been very dynamic and exciting one for ISU as well. We have been seeing actually the highest number of students in our master's program and participants in our Northern and Southern Hemisphere programs, ever, and a growing diversity of geographical and gender distribution. And of course, we had some firsts, which I would like to very briefly mention. This year, in the last 1 year, we had the inaugural class of the Commercial Space Program graduate certificates, which was hosted at NASA's Kennedy Space Center in partnership with Florida Institute of Technology. Also, the first ISU Executive Space course in Southern Hemisphere, run here in Canberra by the support or with the help of Australian Space Agency just a couple of months ago. A new interdisciplinary or multidisciplinary short course on space resources was offered in collaboration with the Luxembourg Space Agency and Colorado School of Mines, and hopefully it will continue in the future. ISU's Space Startup Incubator in Strasbourg, France, in our central campus, now hosts its first company since October, and many more to come in. And this year's cohort of the master's class of space studies has, for the first time in ISU history, more women than men. So hopefully it will be the case in the future for this very program as well. And again, this year, just some months ago, we witnessed the launch of the third ISU alumni into space, and currently she is in orbit. Miss Jessica Meir is one of our alumni from year 2000 from the master's program, and she has been also contributing as a lecturer so far, and hopefully after her mission she will come back to teach again. And for the first time, ISU recovers its payloads that have been flown on board the International Space Station this year, and we now created a laboratory to provide and send more stuff up there to the ISS. And our board has adapted a new strategic plan that includes ambitious objectives in research as well as the accreditation of the master's program. So if you think these were just exciting, so I would probably say wait, more to come in 2020. So coming to SHSSP, this year's program actually holds a record as well. As you know, it is the biggest class ever, biggest SHSSP ever. We have 53 participants, including 17 from Australia, representing 14 different countries. We have a balanced distribution of engineers, scientists, managers, lawyers, doctors, journalists, and many other backgrounds. As every year, the SHSSP class had been handpicked, all of these participants here, and we have 70% of the class having a master's degree or higher. And no later than tomorrow, we will kick off with our core lecture series, where our participants will have their chance to hear from world-renowned experts who will join us not only from Australia, but also from the US, Canada, France, Portugal, Japan, and many other countries. We will complement these lectures with dozens of hands-on and interactive workshops, as well as evening events. As every year, we will have one astronaut joining us to the program, and this year we are more than happy and excited once again to host the Italian astronaut Paolo Nespoli, who will come and teach lectures and run workshops as part of our curriculum. And for the public, yes, we also would like to be here in these evening events, and then you can have a chance and meet, for example, Paolo as well, if you can join us this Saturday in this auditorium. The week after, on Wednesday, January 22nd, we will welcome Ellen Duffy in an event called Darkness Visible Down Under. For these and many other public events, I would like to encourage all the locals to register for free on our Eventbrite page and join us. And if you are not based in Adelaide and maybe watching us online at the moment, all these public events will also be broadcasted, live-casted on our website, so you can follow us online. Finally, the last 2 weeks of the program will be the time for the SHSSP participants to work on their team projects. This year, the two topics that our academic council selected are lunar farming and access to space in Southern Hemisphere. The former, the first project, will investigate the needs of a lunar settlement and describe possible ways of meeting them, including precursor demonstrations to show that essential crops can be successfully grown, harvested, and processed on the moon in a sustainable manner. The second project will consider recent developments in space launch services internationally, and will survey both the demand for and the likely supply for new space launch services in the Southern Hemisphere from the perspective of both launch customers as well as launch service providers. I hereby would like to also invite you to join us for the final presentation of these team projects on Thursday, February 13th at Mawson Lakes, where our participants will present their work and findings to the public, as well as our experts in the evaluation board. As another important aspect of this year's program, at the end of this month, from January 31st till February 2nd, we will be hosting our traditional alumni conference in a completely new and professional format under its new name, ISU Adelaide Conference. And I would like to hereby thank those involved in the planning and the dedicated sponsors for this event. This event will be the perfect opportunity for the ISU Australian alumni community to come back together, and I would like to emphasize that it will be hosted here in the city center of Adelaide and will also be open to public. ISU, as you probably know, as part of its values and of international collaboration and peaceful exploration and development of space, has worked in the part of various projects on climate change and the environment, which includes projects on disaster management, monitoring and mitigation, climate change adaptation, and of course to mention bushfires. So during the ISU Adelaide conference, we will be hosting a panel to discuss the role of space sector for mitigating the bushfires, which is, as you know, unfortunately, an ongoing and in a way worsening situation here in Australia. Last but not least, I would like to acknowledge and thank the program staff here and all the experts and speakers who will join us in the upcoming days, as well as the sponsors and the scholarship funds who are supporting our participants. Without your dedicated work and support, we could have never achieved where we are here today. To conclude, I would like to once again express my excitement to be on the pilot seat for this very special mission that we are launching orbit today with 53 passengers on board. So the launch window is open. All systems are go. Well, buckle up, enjoy the ride. So I hereby declare SHSSP20 open.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you, Göktürk. If I could just ask the speakers to come up for a quick photograph. Excellent, thank you. I'd also like to repeat those words that Göktürk said in thanking our programme staff, the participants, and all of our many friends and supporters in the audience that come here every year. This programme wouldn't be possible without the support of many groups and organisations. And you can see on the slides behind you a list of our programme sponsors, our scholarship providers, and then our other supporters, event sponsors, and sponsored placements. Without all these people, it would be very, very difficult to run this programme. I'd also like to acknowledge the dedicated and hard-working staff who work behind the scenes to ensure this programme runs smoothly. So that's a small team of staff based here at the University of South Australia, at Mawson Lakes, and also the staff that work in here from ISU, but also back at the home campus in Strasbourg. They've been working very hard over the last few months to make this programme work. We also acknowledge the support of the Hawke Centre in making the Kerry Packer Civic Gallery available for our event. So this concludes the formalities, and it's time to get on with the rocket science. So if you'd like to join us up at the back at the Kerry Packer Civic Gallery for refreshments, and would the class of 2020 like to join me down the front for another photograph? So thank you very much, everybody, for coming.